Joining us live now from Melbourne is the former Labor Senator Stephen Conroy for our once-a-week chat. Stephen, good to see you. Have you gotten over your little whinge after last week's cricketing episode yet?
Well, it was another great test. I mean, what a cracker of a series we're having. 3 tests which could have gone either way and 2 more to come. But I'm pleased to see that the match moved on from the dramas of that match. And now everyone was back to mixing and drinking together and families mingling on the pitch afterwards. So I think that was a great sign. I'm not sure about the prime ministers of the various countries, but the cricketers have moved on.
This is, I mean, potentially we're almost as good as 2005 here, Stephen. Potentially.
Oh, absolutely. This has just been, must-watch TV. Just been fantastic. I stayed up to virtually the end the other night and stayed up till 4:30 for Edgbaston. It's just been great watching.
Political matters. Paul Keating, we've spoken about him a little in the past. He's had a refreshed spray, this time at the NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg, who this morning is looking like Sweden's going to be allowed into NATO. Keating, he's purposely doing this to needle elbow, do you think?
No question. Look, I remember Paul Keating going to Germany, standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate and giving the Germans a lecture about architecture when he was Prime Minister. It was one of my more famous memories of Paul. So I'm glad to see that he's moved from architecture to the world defence structures for democratic nations to hang out together. I mean, Paul is just increasingly, I think Penny put it best, just diminishing in his own legacy. It's sad.
Do you think, people like Anthony Albanese, he was asked about it by Trudy yesterday, and even Richard Marles, do they need to more strongly rebuke him?
Well, I think the sheer silliness of what he's saying stands for itself. I mean, I think just ignoring him, other than saying, look, Paul's made an enormous contribution to Labor over his lifetime, and we all, admire him greatly for that period. But his contributions over the last few years have just become increasingly silly, and people are, laughing at him. It's sad.
Speaking of Richard Marles, polling's not so good for him today. He's in the -3 now. Albanese's done okay, actually. Mark Butler, the worst, -4. Is this some evidence that the current government is tackling the wrong issues?
No, I think what you're seeing there is just the natural coming back to the field. I mean, Albo's had an extraordinary honeymoon. He's done a fabulous job in his first 12 months plus. But now all of the issues that impact every other politician around the world are starting to impact on the government. And the government have got a budget that they brought into surplus. I think you're going to see a record surplus come through. You're going to see that the government's new measures that were introduced in the budget have come into play in terms of relief in a number of areas. So I think there's challenges. I remember when we won in 2007, that first 12 months, Kevin Rudd was the most incredibly popular person on the planet. But eventually the real world comes into play and the issues that affect Australians on a day-to-day basis. And at the moment, inflation, wages and electricity prices, they're issues that every Australian is struggling with. The rental crisis. These are issues now the government needs to sit down and start working their way through to be seen to be delivering for Australia.